Welcome to our Alaska webinar, and I hope you'll learn a lot from this. And I'm Lisa Torgerson. I am the Director of Leisure Travel Services for Travelex International. And I'm going to introduce you to Daniel Katz, who is one of our partners, one of my favorite partners from Celebrity Cruises. And he has brought along Brendan Halcomb, who he'll introduce and tell you a little bit about him. That is going to share Alaska with us today and hopefully get us excited for next year, 2021. So go ahead, Daniel, and take it away.
We're going to be very excited for next year. Everyone's going to be ready for a vacation after this, and Alaska's waiting for us. So thank you for having me on today. Our special guest is Brendan Halcomb. He is the guru. He is all things Alaska. He's my go-to for everything Alaska. He's a great partner of ours. He's our product manager for Celebrity Cruises for the cruise tour product. So he's going to walk us through what you can expect on an Alaskan cruise tour, talk to us a little bit about Alaska. He's going to tell us about a new option for a cruise tour, and I see it here on the screen for Homer, which I'm really excited about. So we'll save questions till the end. We'll let Brendan kind of go through his presentation, and then we'll hang out and we'll answer any questions you guys might have, whether it's about Alaska or about cruising Celebrity, and I'm sure there's a couple questions out there. So I will hand it over to Brendan, and we'll enjoy his amazing presentation. They're always awesome. One day we're going to get him there in person. He does great with via webinars, but in person is even better. So thanks, Brendan, for joining, and I'll let you take it away.
You got it. So just to check, Dan and everyone, you see the opening screen, right, of the bear walking up the Denali Park Road?
No, right now I see just a background of a landscape, like a mountain and some ocean here.
Does that some? Not a problem. I can.
There we go.
Super quick. Okay. All right, you should be seeing the bear now. I think that should have worked.
Yep.
Good stuff. Well, appreciate it, Dan, for the opportunity to talk a little bit about Alaska. As Dan knows, I spent a lot of time behind a desk in a cubicle and then traveling forth between Alaska and my home, which is Texas now. So the opportunity to come out and talk a little bit about Alaska and get people excited about Alaska, because I'm always excited about Alaska, is always fun for me. I've been in the cruise industry for 17 years now. I started out in 2003. My first ship was the Celebrity Millennium, and this is me on the left-hand side, and my first cruise to Alaska back in 2003. Pretty girl on my arm back then. She's now downstairs with the baby, so that worked out pretty well. And then this on the right-hand side is just my most recent trip back in last year. We took a fabulous fam trip of travel partners up to Alaska, and we had a great time on our trip up there. So from that 17 years that I've been working in the cruise industry, from the time I was cruising in Alaska and the last 5 years working directly with Alaska, 9 of those 17 years, I've been working directly with Alaska in some way. And it's for someone who can get antsy and likes different things, I'm constantly excited and have my breath taken away and inspired by Alaska. There's that much there. There's that much going on. I think a really great way to look at Alaska and the opportunities to explore is to think of it in terms of, what do we think of the day-to-day when we think about Alaska? Well, we think about it here, hanging off the edge of the continental US. Maybe we see it on the news. Intellectually, right, we know that Alaska is the largest US state. We intellectually know that. But I think when you frame it up in terms of the lower 48, you begin to see how big Alaska really is. If you were to split Alaska in two, those two pieces would be the first and second largest US state, with Texas coming in third. There's more coastline in Alaska than the East Coast and the West Coast and the Gold Coast combined. And that's not including the Aleutian Islands. So the question becomes, when you think about how big this state is and how much coastline there is on this state, and that coastline is a series of interconnected islands, how do I see the things that I want to see? How do I do the things that I want to do? How do I have the experiences that I want to have with a state that is this big and a coastline as vast and as disconnected as it is? For me, the way that you do that, for me, the way that can best be achieved is by doing a cruise tour and exploring Alaska by both land and sea. This here is the coastline of Alaska. You can see down at the bottom, you've got Vancouver and Seattle, bottom right-hand side. These are the embarkation ports in Alaska. This is where we start all of our cruising, generally industry-wide. This is where cruising starts in Alaska. As you travel up through that narrow passageway of land, it's called the Inside Passage, right between Vancouver Island and mainland Canada. It's beautiful and it's scenic. And then you travel up the southeastern coastline with destinations like Juneau and Skagway and Ketchikan and Icy Strait Point. And that takes you up to Seward, which is top left-hand side on the Kenai Peninsula. That's the southeastern coastline of Alaska. That's the cruise to Alaska. Now, Celebrity has 3 ships in Alaska. We've got the Solstice that does a Seward, a Seattle round trip. We've got the Millennium that does our northbound, southbound sailings. Then we've got the Eclipse that does the Vancouver round trip sailings. And all of them do a variation of what is a traditional itinerary to Alaska. You'll visit Juneau with tremendous opportunities for whale watching. In fact, some of the finest opportunities for whale watching worldwide are in Juneau, as in springtime when the whales migrate down from Hawaii through the Pacific to the feeding grounds of Alaska. It creates those opportunities for whale watching. And it's really rare to go out on a excursion in Juneau and not have decent whale watching sightings. And particularly if you get lucky, one of the uniquely Alaskan experiences, the bubble net feeding, when pods of whales are using their blowholes in order to create air nets to feed on the fish. And it's spectacular and uniquely Alaskan. And you have opportunities for that in Juneau. And as you go to Skagway, one of the things that I love about Skagway is that it's really representative of Alaska, in that there are 2 spectacular things that really connect with me in Alaska. And one of those is the incredible scenery and wilderness, and the other thing is the history. Skagway has that in abundance. And when you take the Yukon and White Pass Rail, which is the experience that you're seeing here, the #1 rated narrow gauge rail experience in the world, it takes you on the route that the miners took in the late 1800s to access the Yukon gold field. It's got that incredible history to it, but it takes you along the peaks and the valleys and the incredible scenery and the rivers, and it's gorgeous, and it has all of that in one. It's a really, really great day for the family on a narrow gauge rail experience. As you go to Ketchikan, really take an opportunity if you can to get out in the air in Alaska at some point, and Ketchikan is one of those fabulous opportunities because a float plane adventure will take you amongst the Misty Fjords. The Misty Fjords are 1,000-foot smoky cliffs. They're surrounded by the Tongass National Forest. It's these incredible wilderness experiences for the day, for the afternoon, as you're traveling out in Ketchikan. These amazing Alaskan wildlife, wilderness, history experiences. These are opportunities in all of the ports that you visit along the way on the Alaskan itinerary. But there are just as many things to do where you don't need to do an excursion. I think sometimes we think of Alaska and we think, yeah, it's amazing, but it's going to cost a lot of money in shore excursions. And it's true. If you take a float plane adventure or a helicopter wander or a glacier, they're going to be high-dollar excursions. But there are just as many things to do along the way, which are little to no money. And this is one of the things that I love to do every time I went to Juneau, which is as we debark the ship, instead of taking the cable car to the top of the mountain, which is easy and accessible, just walking around the back of Mount Juneau, there's a beautiful trail called the Mount Roberts Trail. And it's about an 1.25 hour hike to the top of Mount Juneau. And just before you get to the top where all the folks are taking the cable car to the top of the mountain, the foliage opens up and you get this beautiful view, which is right to the end of the Gastineau Channel. And it is spectacular and it is free. And the opportunities for those types of experiences along the way are in each port as you're traveling along the southeastern coastline on an Alaskan cruise. You absolutely do not want to miss a cruise to Alaska. It is a spectacular experience in each of the ports and the destinations along the way. And one of those experiences that will blow your mind is a scenic area of cruising. There are differing scenic areas of cruising along the southeastern coastline of Alaska. You'll have heard of names like Glacier Bay or Hubbard Glacier or Tracy-on Fjord or Endicott Arms. These are just glacial scenic areas of cruising. Now, just like national parks, they all have their own different personalities. There's no one glacial scenic area of cruising that's better than the other. They're just different. Glacier Bay, that you may have heard of, has different formations of glaciers, which is scenic and beautiful and different and elongated. And as you go to, for example, Tracy-on Fjord, you sail through a narrow passageway of land, mountainous on either side. And as you get to the end, it opens up to see northern and southern Sawyer glaciers, and it's spectacular. The glacier that I'm going to talk about a little bit more expansively, because we offer them on our open jaw itineraries, and I'll talk about that in a minute, is Hubbard Glacier. Now, Hubbard Glacier, her personality is that she's the most dramatic of all the glacial scenic areas of cruising on the southeastern coastline. And specifically, that's because, and the scientific term is, that she's the largest advancing tidewater glacier in North America. And basically what that means is that where many glacial areas are receding, Hubbard Glacier is advancing to the tune of around 30 meters per day. And what that creates is the calvings. This is when the cliffs of ice, several stories high, collapse from the glacier into the ocean, and it's dramatic and it's spectacular and it has the cracks and the booms, and that's why native Alaskans called it White Thunder, because it's this dramatic experience. And you have more of it at Hubbard Glacier. The view that you're seeing here is the view from the Millennium. We're sitting in Disenchantment Bay, and the captain would be spinning the ship at this point for everyone to have spectacular views, while a dedicated onboard naturalist narrates the experience. It is an awesome day. Any glacial scenic area of cruising will really take your breath away in Alaska. That coastline is an incredible coastline to explore. And the ship that we utilize for our open jaw Alaskan itineraries is the Millennium. Now, this is super exciting for me. I know it's probably not super exciting for everyone, but it is for me. So I'm sorry, Dan, I'm going to talk about it. I apologize. But as someone who spent many, many years working with Alaska, trying to get people excited about the idea of seeing the coastline and the interior, one of the things that's true about it is that not just us, but cruise lines at large, they tend to use slightly newer ships for round-trip Seattle and Vancouver itineraries, and slightly older ships for their open jaw itineraries that go between Vancouver and Seward down to Vancouver. Celebrity took a really strong stance on this, that in 2019, we spent $75 million renovating the Millennium, taking her down to the studs, incorporating a lot of the experiences and the feel of our new ship, the Celebrity Edge, just to be able to do open jaw itineraries on the southeastern coastline, subsequently as part of a cruise tour with a new ship experience, is a really unique thing industry-wide. So I'm going to take that a little exodus to be able to say that, because I'm super proud of it. But it's a really, really cool thing to be able to do that. That's the southeastern coastline of Alaska. You can have those experiences on any one of our ships that are doing Alaskan cruises. You can have it on Solstice, you can have it on Eclipse, you can have it on Millennium. Broadly, the itineraries are pretty similar. There's some minor differences there. But when you do an open jaw itinerary, you additionally afford yourself the opportunity to explore the interior of Alaska. Now, you're seeing the coastline here again, southeastern coastline of Alaska. On a round trip itinerary, when you started out in Seward or Vancouver, you would get up to around the Hubbard Glacier point, and then you would spin back around and come back down to Seattle or Vancouver. Now on the Millennium, we have open jaw itineraries, and open jaw basically means it does not come back to its point of origin. It goes to somewhere else. And in this case, it starts out in Vancouver and goes to Seward, or starts out in Seward and goes to Vancouver. What that creates is the opportunity then to explore all those destinations that you're seeing on the top left-hand side of your screen, which is the interior of Alaska. That coastline is amazing, but going to Seward enables you the opportunity to explore the interior. Now, all of these destinations in the interior of Alaska, again, remember how vast Alaska is. To give you some frame of kind of distances here, if you were to drive directly from Seward to just Denali National Park, that's not even the northernmost point of the map here, just Denali National Park, that would roughly be a 9-hour direct drive. That's not stopping, that's not going anywhere, that's not overnighting, that's a 9-hour direct drive. So the opportunity to explore all of this destination has to be as part of what we call a multi-night land tour. A 2 to 6 night land tour into the interior of Alaska creates the opportunity to explore the interior of Alaska, creates the opportunity to explore Alyeska, which is surrounded by what's called the Chugach mountain range and the 7 hanging glaciers that will take your breath away. It affords you the opportunity to explore Talkeetna, the town that is at the end of the road where nothing is beyond it except the tallest peak in North America. These dramatic, spectacular destinations. Anchorage, which sits on the Turnagain Arm. You can see the most populous city here in the interior of Alaska that is just framed by the coastal Alaska mountain range. It gives you the opportunity to go to Fairbanks, where not only does it have the midnight sun, the most sunlight of anywhere in the interior of Alaska, but also as you get to the latter point of the season, the opportunity for Aurora Borealis, where the light sky just lights up during the evening. It gives you the opportunity to go to the Kenai Peninsula, the destination where Alaskans go to play in Homer, which is a rugged, fabulous destination that we started or will start visiting in 2021. All of this is in the interior of Alaska. And of course, Denali National Park that I'm going to talk about in a bit. But the question becomes, and I think this is a good question for you to ask yourself, is, okay, I know the coastline of Alaska isn't amazing. And I know this guy is getting very excited when he starts to talk about the interior of Alaska as well. But what does that mean for me? What are the questions that I should ask myself about what is the best experience for me in exploring Alaska? And I think it's a good question to ask. And the way that you do that, the way that you effectively do that, is to bucket out the experiences that you want. Don't think about the experiences that I want. What are the experiences that you want when going to Alaska? What will make your trip to Alaska an amazing experience? What are the things that you've heard about and you would just have to do? What are the things that you've heard about that would be great but aren't key? But what are the things that you've heard about that maybe just aren't for you? And what I think you'll find as you narrow down and bucket out these experiences is that those experiences will come out into one of 4 categories. You want to have amazing wilderness experiences. You want to have amazing wildlife experiences. You want to have amazing mountainous experiences, and you want amazing glacial experiences. And what's great to recognize and explore and identify as part of those different buckets of experiences, that you can have great wilderness experiences on your coastline. That's absolutely true. I talked about the Ketchikan as an example, right? And flying amongst the misty fjords and being surrounded by the Tongass National Forest, and that's amazing. But it's the afternoon. To be able to have wilderness experiences day in, day out, right? To be surrounded by nature and national parks and have nothing surround you but that, for that, you have to go into the interior of Alaska. You're going to have great wilderness experiences on the coastline on your cruise, but they would be elevated as part of experiencing the interior of Alaska on a cruise tour. Same thing with wildlife. Don't discount the amazing wildlife experiences you'll have on the coastline, because the opportunity for whales that we spoke about, but also orcas and sea lions and otters and bald eagles overhead, it's incredible. But when you think about the wildlife experiences that would really elevate it for you, probably what you come up with is the big five, which is the moose, the caribou, the grizzlies, the dull sheep, and the wolves. And the best opportunity for that is going to be in Denali National Park. For that, you have to go to the interior of Alaska. Great wildlife experiences on the coastline, but they're elevated as part of experiencing the cruise tour. And then when you think about the mountainous experiences, the coastal range is absolutely spectacular. Really just standing in Seward, watching the Kenai mountain range cascade as part of glacial formations down into the Pacific is breathtaking. But when we think about that one mountainous experience that would really create an amazing trip, we of course think of Denali, right? We think of formerly Mount McKinley, the tallest peak in North America. And when the clouds rise from it, it is a spectacular sight. But it's also over 377 miles from any of the coastal areas of Alaska. To experience that, you have to go into the interior of Alaska. You have to do a cruise tour. Your mountainous experience will be elevated as part of a cruise tour. Now, those glaciers you're going to get as part of any cruise only or cruise tour. But when you think about those key experiences that really drive what would be a once in a lifetime amazing experience for you, each one of them is elevated as part of visiting the interior of Alaska in addition to the coastline as part of a cruise tour experience. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how that cruise tour experience goes, right? What happens when you get into the interior of Alaska? How is it structured? We're super proud of what we call the celebrity difference, which is what elevates our cruise tours from the industry standard. And what it really comes down to is revolution that I spoke about, but then larger service and transportation as well. We use the finest lodges available in the interior of Alaska and each of the destinations that we visit. Now remember what I spoke about, 2 to 6 night land tour into the interior of Alaska. That's what creates the time and the space to really explore this destination. But for that, you then need overnight experience. You need overnights, right, in lodges and hotels. What's really important for us is that we start out with the experience. We do not start out with the hotel or the lodge. We want to take you to where the best experience is, and then select the finest lodge in that destination for you to be able to have the experience that we think is key to you having an amazing vacation experience in Alaska. Now, those properties really run the gamut, but Hotel Alyeska, take an opportunity to look at it online some point. It's certainly the finest property in the interior of Alaska. It's got 4 diamond-star restaurant that sits at the top of mountains looking over the 7 hanging glaciers. It's got heated saltwater swimming pools that look out over lush valleys. It's really a beautiful property. That's where we're staying when we go to Girdwood. Talkeetna Alaskan Lodge on the top left-hand side. Great property, but what I want to highlight is this. Top right-hand side of the screen, look at that mountain range. What's right there, center point, is Denali, formerly Mount McKinley, towering above the rest of the coastal mountain range, tallest peak in North America. That's your view from the back of the Talkeetna Alaskan Lodge on a clear day. Just 5 minutes away from the town of Talkeetna to get into the town and have those great local experiences. Denali Park Village, just 12 minutes away from the gates of Denali National Park itself, sits right on Nenana River. Fire pits on the outside, rushing by, surrounded by the coastal range. It's a fabulous property to have those national park experiences. Each of the properties where we stay are the finest property available in that destination, but the key part is we believe that destination is where you're going to have the amazing experiences in Alaska. All of our cruise tours are a fully escorted experience as well. Again, we think it's key to just delivering amazing experiences. Again, go back to what I spoke about. Largest U.S. state by some distance. How do you ensure that what you're going to do and where you're going to be and And what's going to happen when you're going to get there is going to be amazing. The way that you do that is by having a local tour guide who is there with you the duration of the journey, giving you great recommendations based on your personality and your wants and your needs. And that's what we do on all of our Alaska cruise tours. When you fly into the interior of Alaska, you're met by one person, your dedicated local tour guide, someone who comes from Alaska or lives in Alaska but has that deep connection with Alaska. They'll introduce you to your dedicated motor coach driver. Tour guide is doing the tour guiding, driver is doing the driving and transporting your luggage from the hotel room back down to the motor coach. And then your dedicated motor coach driver introduces you to your dedicated deluxe motor coach. That's your motor coach for the duration of the journey, you and the 42 other people that are traveling with you. We think it's a great way to explore the interior of Alaska and really the way to deliver on amazing experiences in the interior of Alaska. And then finally, the transportation. I talked about the motor coaches, but check out the rail. Just fabulous. These are the Wilderness Express rail carriages. Every single Alaska cruise tour that we offer has a Wilderness Express rail experience. What you're seeing here are the upstairs domed rail carriage, 80 persons up top, luxury leather seating, very well apportioned, bar service available at the seats. Each rail leg is going to be 3 to 5 hours, and every single cruise tour that we offer has one of those rail legs. Some of our cruise tours have multiple rail legs and are almost exclusively traveling by rail for the duration of the cruise tour. Such a fabulous way to travel in Alaska, and these are some of the finest rail carriages available in Alaska itself. Really, really fabulous. And then finally, what's included on the tour component is included experiences. Now think of these kind of like shore excursions, right? But they're built into the land tour component themselves. Fabulous included experiences. Couple of my favorites here. The River Boat Discovery is a 4-hour experience where you're traveling on the Chena River. What I love about it, and what I love about Alaska in generally, is that it's almost always local Alaskans who are wanting to introduce you to their home. The Riverboat Discovery is run by a family called the Binkleys. It's a beautiful old stern-wheel boat that's running on the Chena River. The Binkleys have been in Fairbanks since the founding of the town itself over 100 years ago. Last year, I was fortunate enough to sail on one of their stern-wheelers with the matriarch of the Binkley family, who is 97 years old. And then we went and visited an Athabascan Indian village and learned about their culture and the history, and it's an amazing day. Probably the included experience that you've heard about the most are the tours into Denali National Park. And you're seeing on the left-hand side of the screen here, Tundra Wilderness Tour or Denali Natural History Tour. Denali National Park is 6 million acres of pristine and wild and wonderful land, but there's one road that goes into it. And what you're seeing here on the right-hand side of your screen is the Denali Visitor Center, and that road that travels down into Denali National Park, that's the Denali Park Road. That's the one road. Kantishner, at the end of it there, that's 92 miles away from the starting point. The differing names, Denali Natural History Tour, Tundra Wilderness Tour, all they're identifying is how far down that road you go. Denali Natural History Tour goes about 30 miles down, and then the Tundra Wilderness Tour goes around 62 miles down. But the further down the road that you go, the more opportunity that you have for incredible wildlife views or mountain views of Denali the mountain or the tundra and the taiga or whatever it is that you're seeing on that individual journey. But when you go into Denali National Park, you're always going with a national park ranger who is narrating the experience. They have fabulous connections with the Denali National Park and Preserve. It's a really, really cool day. Every single one of our cruise tour includes a tour into Denali National Park. So this is the range of cruise tours, and I'm not going to get into all of these because it would take a long time, but I really want to draw attention to a couple things, because I think at times when folks are making decisions about which cruise tour and why cruise tour and how cruise tour, they can get a little bit overwhelmed with all the different cruise tours. Now, you can see here that we've got basically 12 different cruise tours. All of them go northbound or southbound. What does that mean? That means that either you can fly into Vancouver, do the 7-night sailing on the Millennium, and then debark in Seward, where you do the 2 to 6 night land tour into the interior of Alaska, then flying home from Anchorage or Fairbanks. That's a northbound itinerary. or alternatively, you can fly into Anchorage or Fairbanks, do that 2 to 6 night land tour that would take you down to Seward, where you'd embark the Millennium for a southbound itinerary down to Vancouver. You can do them northbound or southbound. And when we have an individual cruise tour, you can do it as a northbound or southbound itinerary. So there's a lot of different options, but what's really important to recognize is what are the core differences between the options? Now, there are differences in included experiences, in the number of rail journeys, but look at the 9 and 10 night cruise tours here. Where do we visit as part of our 9 and 10 night cruise tour? Well, you have the opportunity to visit Fairbanks, Denali, Talkeetna, and Anchorage on that land component. On our 11 night cruise tours, you have the opportunity to visit broadly the same places, right? Fairbanks, Denali, Talkeetna, Anchorage, now one more destination, Seward. And then it's the same thing for the 12 night and the 13 night. You have maybe one more destination that's added in there. It just stands to reason that the longer that you're with us in the interior of Alaska, the more opportunity we have to take you to places and do things and have experiences. And it brings up what I think is the most important point to recognize about Alaska when you're considering which cruise tour or cruise tour versus cruise, which is that Alaska is not Disney World. The bears will be there if they want to, and they won't if they won't. And the clouds will rise from Denali, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. But the longer that you go to Alaska for, the more opportunities that you create for yourself for those magical, natural moments to happen. Alaska is the quintessentially natural destination. The longer that you're there, the more opportunities that you create for those moments. The number one question I would ask myself, and I encourage you to ask yourself before deciding on which cruise tour or cruise tour instead of cruise, is how long can I commit to having an amazing vacation experience in Alaska? Whether that's 11 night or 12 night or 13 night, whatever that is, that's where you start. And then look at the options that are offered under those length of cruise tour there, because that's going to give you your best experiences in the interior of Alaska. All right, couple recommendations for when you do go. Just from my long years of traveling in Alaska, probably what I see the most is when folks turn up for their Alaska vacation dressed like this. Alaska is not the Arctic. It is gorgeous during the summertime. You do not need to wear crimping boots and big furry coats, because all that's going to happen is that you're going to get some great weather, and then you're going to be dragging all of these clothes around. This is not the way to dress when you come to Alaska. This is Bob. Bob's not from Alaska, you can tell by his teeth, but he is dressed in the way that you should be dressed when you come to Alaska. Layer up your clothes, Gore-Tex clothes, really nice clothes, very breathable when you're coming to Alaska. You want to be able to take the layers off. You want to be able to put them back on when you get some great weather, and then you get some showers, and then it becomes cloudy. That's the way that you want to dress and pack when you're coming to Alaska. This is your range of temperatures. Now, obviously, check out the summer season there, because the summer season is when we're traveling to Alaska. It's a May through September season. And this is the coastline. This is actually Anchorage. So it's a little bit cooler on the coastline than the interior of Alaska. You're probably adding about another 4 or 5 degrees to these temperatures when you're getting to the interior of Alaska. But a lower part of the season in May and September, you can see there right around 55 degrees, and you're jumping up to 65 when you get into the higher part of the summer season. As I said, it gets a little bit warmer as you're getting to the interior of Alaska. I think the number one question I get more than anything is, what is the best time to visit Alaska? The truth about this question is that there is no one answer to it. It just depends on what you'll get at the different points of the season. When you go to Alaska in springtime, you get the flowers blooming, which is incredible because, again, think of a destination that rains a little bit, but also has, during the height of summer, 23 or 24 hours of sunlight. You get incredible flora and fauna, incredible foliage, and that's all blooming in spring, and it's spectacular. Really nice to be there in spring for that reason. Also, what you find in spring is some of the animals come out of hibernation. Again, that can kind of depend on the season, but certainly because a lot of the foliage hasn't grown out, you have a little bit more opportunity for wildlife sightings, just because there isn't foliage, right, for them to hide in, out and amongst for there. As you get into the summer, the higher part of the season, so we're talking about mid-June onwards now, summer solstice happens, So summer solstice is the longest or the most sunlight that you get at any point of the season. This is a time shoot, right, for the sun at different points as it just kind of pops down below the horizon and up again. If you're on a cruise tour in summer solstice, I highly recommend when you're in Anchorage going to a bar called Simon and Seaforth. Got a beautiful balcony that looks over the Turnagain Arm, and literally you can sit on this bar, watch the sun drop below the horizon, and 15 minutes later just pop back up again. It's a really, really cool experience, a great opportunity to have some local Alaskan craft beer as well, which is always a good thing. In summertime, the salmon runs begin to happen as well. Starts out with the silver salmon in the middle part of June, and then you progress forward with the king salmon and so on from there. But that's great to be there during that time. Obviously, that attracts bears as well. So that's a really cool time to be there. And then as you get into the fall, a couple things happen. Firstly, you get the full foliage, which is just amazing in Denali National Park if you get the opportunity to see it. If anyone's ever done a cruise to Canada or New England during the fall time, the fall, all the tundra and the taiga in Denali National Park turning that burnt orange is a really amazing experience. And also Northern Lights. You do have the opportunity for some Northern Lights in Alaska during the summer season, but you need to be on the final 2 cruise tours of the season, and you must go to Fairbanks. That creates your opportunities in order to see some Northern Lights, some Aurora Borealis. I would always recommend as well staying an additional night or 2 after your cruise tour in Fairbanks in order to maximize those opportunities. Then you can get out into the countryside in Fairbanks and really, well, maximize your opportunities to see Aurora Borealis. But it's, you know, really a spectacular sight if you get to see it. All right, Dan, that's me. I aimed for half an hour. I failed, as I always do. I apologize. But obviously happy to answer any questions about any of that or anything else.
Yeah,
No, thank you. We love it when you go over.
and I love your
Go ahead, Lisa.
excitement, Brandon.
Oh, thank you, Lisa. It's not hard to get excited about Alaska. I really mean it when I say, like, I go 3 times a year, about 3 times a year, take a lot of fam trips for our travel partner friends up there, and then doing some other product stuff related as well. And I stand in Seward every year, surrounded by the Kenai Mountain Range, and think it is this beautiful. I wasn't remembering something else. It is this beautiful. It's a truly spectacular destination.
So if you have a question, please type it in either the Q&A box or in the chat box, and I'm sure Brandon or Daniel would be happy to answer any questions you have. And while we're waiting for that, if these questions, you know, they don't get answered and you want to give us a call, I'm sure we can get the answer if you think of something after it's completed. We also are taping this, so if you want to go back and watch it, it will be on our website in the next couple of days as well.
And while we're waiting for questions, I'm going to switch the screen here. I'm going to put up some pictures of what Millennium that Brendan was talking about, the revolution that it went through, the beauty of the ship. I'll show you guys some pictures while we wait for the questions to populate here. So give me 1 second. All right, let me see if I can get this done here. Did that work? Can you guys see the screen?
I can see
Yeah,
it.
I can see it.
Cool. Okay. I'm going to check, see if we have any questions here.
Yeah, I don't see any yet, Daniel.
Nothing yet? Okay. So what
yet.
I'll do real quick, we have a little bit of time. I'm going to pop through what we're doing to our ships across the brand, or what we did on some of our Millennium class ships, and then also our Solstice class ships. We have 2 of those updated as well. So as Brendan had mentioned, we went through this big remodel of the ship. Millennium was one of our older ships, but we brought out Edge, and we weren't moving Edge over to Alaska, but we said, all right, we need to put some attention and throw a great ship over there. Millennium is a fantastic ship, and she got just a little bit of an update here. So we added the Retreat onto Millennium, which is for our suite class guests, where they have an exclusive lounge and sun deck, a restaurant called Lumine, which they're assigned to, which is exclusive for them. And then they have a lot of amenities that we've included when you do book into a suite. So you get a premium beverage package, high-speed internet, prepaid gratuities, and onboard credit. I'll walk you through some of the suites here. You can see on the left is Millennium and then Solstice. This is the penthouse suite. So these were updated last summer, and it's absolutely amazing. The other ship in the Millennium class that was updated was Summit. Summit will typically spend her time either in the Caribbean in the winter or during Bermuda and the East Coast. So both of those ships were updated. And then as far as the Solstice class, we have Silhouette that has been updated and Equinox. Equinox is in the Caribbean all year round. And Silhouette at this time of year would typically be up in Northern Europe. But right now, she's somewhere, I believe, off the coast of Florida. And she'll do her Caribbean season she'll do her winter season, excuse me, in the Caribbean. So these are just some of the suites. A Sky Suite, which you see here, is an entry-level suite into our suite class. So Constellation and Infinity, you see it up here. They were slated to get these brand new Sunset suites. Right now, and I'll show you the timeline, right now we're holding off on some of the Revolution, but just know that we have updated 2 of the Millennium class ships and then also 2 of our Solstice class ships. On top of that, we have Edge that has been released. She's a little over a year old now. And then Apex is another ship that we announced. April 1st, she joined our family, and she's just waiting for her first guest. So hopefully we'll see that happen very soon. This is the Retreat Lounge for all of our suite guests. There's the sun deck. And then these are your standard balcony staterooms, our veranda staterooms. I would always encourage you to look at the suites. Lisa and her team will definitely be happy to price something out for you. And no matter whether it's a regular cruise or a cruise tour, I always encourage you, no matter what, to have some sort of balcony. A balcony in Alaska is absolutely amazing. If you can do a suite, that's great as well with that balcony. And it gets you really up close and personal when you are doing those days of a day of cruising through the fjords. I remember sitting on my balcony with a cup of coffee and this hunk of glacier ice just sitting there, and the blue that I saw in that piece of ice was, you can't describe it. It was absolutely amazing. It was a blue I've never seen before. And you are right there, what feels like feet away. Obviously, it's, probably yards and yards away, but it was absolutely amazing. So definitely consider that balcony or above. I'll show you some of the public spaces. There's what you can see the exterior of Millennium will now look like. Here's our main dining room. So you could see the before. The before, there was nothing wrong with it. It was those deep, rich colors. And now we've actually moved over to some lighter, brighter, more modern colors. Feels a little bit more open. Our Ocean View Cafe, which is our buffet, which is great. We've added a lot of communal tables there, higher top tables. Rendezvous Lounge, my favorite place on a ship. Well, at least on our Millennium class ships. It's a great place just outside the main dining room. Go and grab a cocktail before dinner, meet your friends before dinner. Often we do our Captain's Club happy hours in there as well. But we updated them. They're very light, bright, airy. There's music at night. Occasionally we'll do karaoke in there. There could be trivia in there, all sorts of activities. Sunset Bar, another great place for sailaways. Our casino's been updated. The shops have been revolutionized as well, along with the spa. And then on our Solstice class ships, we've added these retreat sun decks. So not on the ships that are going to Alaska at this time, but Equinox and Silhouette have been updated. You will, on the suite class guests, you will have this private area. Craft Social, I cannot wait to experience this. Nightlife is great in the Sky Lounge or Passport Bar, Sunset Bar as well. And then we have our alcoves. So this is updated on Equinox, doing the Caribbean year-round. She'll start her longer Caribbean sailings later this year, but you can take advantage of renting these for the entire day. Comes with a butler and great service out there on our half acre of lawn on all of our Solstice class ships. Then we added a screen out there as well. We'll be able to show destination movies. We also have a screen on our Millennium class ships, as well as our Edge class ships. So we will be able to do movie screenings, sports events, and then we can also do more in-depth destination talks as well. So we mentioned the Revolution. We talked about Millennium here. We talked about Summit as well, Equinox and Silhouette. So up until February, we had a plan to revolutionize the remainder of our fleet. Obviously, due to the current situation that we're facing in the world right now, we've put a halt to that. But we're hoping to announce the dates that we will actually be renovating our ships. But just know all of our ships, they're in great, great, great condition. Our service is second to none out there. We have a Michelin-rated chef in charge of our culinary program. We're ready for you. I know that you and your families or whoever's sailing with us will actually love what they get when they experience any of our ships, whether it's revolutionized or not. The other exciting stuff that's happened in the past year and a half, we came out with Edge. Edge is a new class of ship for us, sailing in Europe over the summertime, in the Caribbean in the wintertime. We also brought in Flora, which is a Galapagos exclusive ship. So for those of you looking for that all-suite ship, a little bit smaller in a very exotic, exclusive destination, definitely check out the Galapagos. We also have two other ships that are down there as sister ships. So there's Exploration and Experience. Exploration is a 16-passenger catamaran, and then we also have Experience, which is a little bit larger at 48 passengers. But definitely check out Flora. And then Apex. Apex, I mentioned, we're waiting for her first guest. She's sitting off the coast of France right now. Was supposed to do a Europe season as her inaugural season. We're hoping that there's still something left there. If not, we'll see her in the Caribbean later this year. So I know it's a couple days early. I'm going to give you a sneak peek into what is coming. I may get my hand slapped, I may not, but now you know there is a little extra credit sale that's going to be coming out on June 26th. So if you are looking to book, we're going to be offering a free drinks plus onboard credit on top of what we've been offering for all of June, which is a savings offer. So depending on the class of stateroom that you book, the category of stateroom that you book, you'll receive a dollar amount off. So $200 for inside and ocean view staterooms, $400 for veranda concierge aqua class staterooms, and then suites are $1,000 of cruise fare savings per stateroom there as well. So these are good for sailings between August 1st of 2020, so sailings just in a couple months from now, and then all the way out through May 4th of 2022. These are good for your Alaska cruise tours, so please keep that in mind. Aside from that, we're going to check the question box here.
I think you guys did such a great job. Nobody has any questions.
So let me tell one other thing I just want to kind of put out there. Yesterday, we did announce that we are suspending sailings until September 15th. So we will resume sailing as of right now on September 16th. The Alaska season for 2020 has actually been canceled, unfortunately. It breaks our heart. It hurt really badly. We are excited. Things are looking really good for Alaska 21. So we are ready to get back up there, support our friends in Alaska. So if you have questions, you are looking for sailings. I know that Lisa, you and your team at Travelex have some group space out there, some great pricing for 21 sailings, and then we're happy to work on cruise tours as well with everyone.
Perfect. Well, thank you both for joining us. I can't tell you how much we appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to spend some time with us and just help us dream a little bit, because I know it's been a trying time for everyone. And it's nice to kind of just dream virtually if that's all we can do. So thank you so much for joining us. If you do have questions, by all means, please feel free to reach out to anybody here at Travelex, and we'll be happy to assist you with any of the questions or any other information that you might need.
Yeah, and I can hang out for a few minutes too if people, come up with any questions in the next couple minutes. Brendan, thank you so much. Hopefully we get Brendan in here one day. We'll give him 2 hours to talk.
Yeah.
The first hour is always interesting. The second hour is you'll be thinking about cocktails at TGI Fridays. Thank you guys. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk about Alaska cruise tours a little bit. Alaska as a destination is just fabulous. You will not regret it. We would love to take you to Alaska with Celebrity, but my number one recommendation is just go. Get there somehow. It is breathtaking. It will be a once-in-a-lifetime experience for you. So thank you so much, and have a fabulous week.
All right. Thanks,
Brendan.
everybody. Good night.
Bye.
All right, Daniel, we'll just say, oh, hang on a second. Somebody has a question.
Here
Hold
from
on.
Casey.
Yeah.
If you're a big exercise nut, I'll answer this one here. If you're a big exercise nut, which cruise boat would you recommend? I'll tell you this, Casey. All of our ships have amazing fitness centers. We have tracks around all of, around the upper deck of the pool area. A very cool thing that we did add on Edge and Apex was a track that goes in a figure 8 and kind of has an incline to it. So it goes down one deck and then up another deck, which will give you a little bit more exercise there, or a little resistance, I guess. And the fitness center is phenomenal on these new ships, but every single fitness center has free weights. It has machines. We offer classes, yoga classes, Pilates classes, spin classes. We have just about everything. I believe we added Peloton also onto our Edge and Apex ships. So there's definitely not a short of exercise opportunities. Good question. Did you have any other questions?
I don't see any. That was the only one that I saw. So I think we can, unless we see a question here in the next minute or so, we can say goodnight until we can talk to each other, at least meet in person again, right?
I know. I'm ready for it. I was sitting here today. I'm going, oh, I just need to get on the road.
Yeah.
But it's good.
Well,
but
hopefully it's coming. We
nice
see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, it's just nice to see people, and we'll be back to sailing very soon, and we're really hopeful for a strong fall season and a strong 2021. We'll get through this.
Yeah, we will, and we'll be back before you know it.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
All right, everybody.
All right.
We'll wrap it up. Thank you so much.
Yes, and thank you, everybody, for joining us. We truly appreciate it, and until we see you next time. Good night.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.